Welcome back. It's Mr. Seward, and this is part 2 of our if structures lesson. So right now our code doesn't allow us to run both motors at the same time, but our task description does tell us that that is exactly what our code needs to do. Now, the reason that's happening is that because of the way whiles work, only one while structure can be true at the same time. So that's the problem. To solve our problem, what we could do is we could put both motors inside of the same while loop, but I wouldn't be able to make them controllable by a switch in that case. So what we need to be able to do is to control them with two different switches, but we need to get them to run at the same time. So whiles are only going to get us so far. We need two things to be true at the same time. The software needs to be able to make a decision. So now, instead of whiles, we're going to use the word if. I'll change the word while that's next to sensor value switch A, right here. I'm going to change that to if. And I'm also going to change the while that's down here next to sensor value B to an if. So two ifs can run at the same time. The only time you need ifs is if there is some type of decision needed to be made, or two things need to be true and running at the same time. So let's try this out. Let's see. We'll go over here to our motors. I'll compile this program and download it to the robot. All right. So let's see if this is going to work. That one's not working. Neither of those are working. So let's take a look at our motors with PID. And I don't see either of them working. Something's up here. I'll pause the video and see if I can figure it out. So I figured out what my problem was. I was not pushing start in the debugger. So now let's try the motors and see what happens here. I'm going to turn this one on. I don't know if you can hear that. The motor's kind of like, it runs and it makes a louder noise and then no noise, and a loud noise and a low noise real quick. So it's kind of stuttering. It's not a really solid, fast sounding motor. And the reason for that is that, well, it's not right. So when we take a look down at the debugger, what you'll notice is that it keeps flashing 127.0, 127.0, 127.0. And that's going on for both motors, 127.0, 127.0. So there's our problem right down there, that it's not getting the right amount of power. And the trouble is the stops. So these if statements can run at the same time, and because these stop motors are part of the if statement, they are also trying to run at the same time. So when the motor gets started, it gets stopped, gets started, gets stopped, and then it loops back and starts and stops and starts and stops over and over again. They're conflicting with each other. Well, what can we do? Well, we'll create two more ifs. So I'm going to stop this and close my debugger. And I will go into here and I'm going to copy the first if, and then I'm going to paste it in after the start motor, left motor. So I'm going to copy this if, and I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to paste this in. And in this case, instead of switch A being equals to 1, which is true, I want it to be equals to 0. And instead of start motor here, I'm going to cut this out. You have to take that stop motor out right there and replace this start motor up here and put the stop motor over the top of it. Let's see, I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to copy this if, copy. I'll go down here to below that bracket and Control V. And I'm going to change this equal sensor switch B to a 0. And instead of start motor here, I'm going to cut and paste in. Oops, come on. Try going from this side. Copy. And I'm going to paste it in right here. Oops, didn't cut that one out. So let's just delete that one out. Okay? So now what we've got is if it's true, the motor is going to run. If it's false, the motor is going to not run. Stop. If the motor in switch B is true, then the motor is going to run. If it's false, it's not going to run. So let's see what happens here when we compile and download to Robot. Okay. Oops, got to hit start again. Okay. So now the motor's switching, and if you watch the debugger on your left window, it's a steady 127. What about the other one? Same thing here. It's a steady 127. Now the big test. Will they both run at the same time? And they do. So that works. But we can simplify it just a little bit more. And that's video number 3.